Yo, that's 86. 86.
You're 86th.
Can I have a yogurt, please?
Yo, that's 86.
Welcome back to 86. We've got Natalia from Australia line. Oh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello. Hi, I'm Natalia Pinkney. I am, unfortunately for Shelby, longtime friends with Shelby, and I have been down here in Australia for almost 3 years. I'm mainly here playing semi-professional soccer, but along with that, I also did my fair share of serving and bartending, and in another country, it's definitely a different world, that's for sure.
Fantastic. Looking in on America right now as an American abroad, how do you feel about everything that's going on right now?
For me, it's super weird because I'm obviously I'm an extremely social person. If you don't know me, shocker. And so I try and stay connected as much as I can, and obviously, with my family and all those things. So I'm speaking to people from home, and I'm hearing and seeing everything that's going on at home, and then I step out my house here, and it's completely different reality. Between the protesting and the virus alone, those two factors have completely changed worlds in terms of how you're dealing with everything right now. And for me, it is super lax here. Like, we haven't had an alarming number of cases, at least in my state of Queensland. So, I mean, things closed down, but no one really fully stopped their lives. I mean, people stopped working, but other than that, it's drastically different than from home. So, I'll have a FaceTime call with someone and they'll be like, this is crazy, this is happening. And I'm like, yeah, this dog wouldn't stop barking next door. Because, like, I don't have anything eventful to talk about on my end because everything over here is literally a complete different reality.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so different. So have restaurants, like, things have stopped, like businesses stopped, you're just not like really working?
Depends on the restaurant. So, like, the cafe that I worked at personally, Hot Shot in Main Beach, they never fully closed. We were lucky enough that we had a really, really strong fan base, local base, regulars that come in that basically were like, oh, no, you guys aren't going under on our watch. So when they basically had to reduce in size, send people home, casuals got sent home, visa people, the likes of the things. Basically, my bosses just ran it themselves for a good, like, 3 weeks, maybe almost a month of the first hit of the pandemic. They sent everyone home and they ran the shop themselves with reduced hours and just hammered it out. So they did the tough route. They stuck it through. They refused to close and they just toughed it out. Whereas a lot of her friends, my boss's friends, were shutting down, cutting staff off. They couldn't handle the load of losing, customers, and everything happened with the pandemic. But it kind of just depended on how popular you are. Were you a chain? Were you something that the locals really appreciated? Was it something that the backpackers really like to do? So because this is such a tourist-based community, it kind of depended on which base target you were getting business from. So if backpackers were your main target, you probably closed down because most people went home. So it was just a kind of a hit or miss of what was your business based on. Was it local? Was it, tourist? Was it a mix? So we were a mix, and luckily we had enough local base that we didn't have to shut down, but other companies were definitely not that lucky.
Yeah, because I mean, I didn't even think about that it wasn't that it was mandatory for you guys to shut down. It was more like when the tourists leave, you kind of don't have a choice in certain places. Wow,
Yep.
that's crazy. What do you think, like, did you work in the industry here at all?
No, I mean, Sean told me I should have in college because it would have been a great side job, but I never took it seriously because I was like, oh, I don't have time to serve. Like, who has time to do that and soccer? And then came over here and started working at the cafe, and I was like, I'm literally doing this and playing semi-professional soccer. I screwed up so hard in college, not side hustling and making more money. But when I picked up the trade over here and talking to people like you and like Sean worked at home in the industry and half of our friends work in the industry at home. And I'm like comparing stories and talking about things. I could not imagine the way things working here being successful at home at all.
Yeah.
Not by any means.
Well, why is that? I'm curious. Can you expand on that at all? What the difference is?
Well, mainly it's because like at home, obviously we're tip-based service. So,
Mhm.
you know, you go into a job knowing you're getting paid, you know, nothing. And you basically have to just be damn good at your job or have a really good company that you work for where tipping is basically going to happen. Well, here, because you get paid a livable wage as a server, no matter your position, you can live off of literally just serving. So tipping isn't necessarily like a thing. Now, it happens and it's possible and they're very aware of the tipping system, but it's genuinely a tip. So it's very far few in between. It actually means something. You can tell that they truly enjoy their experience when you receive one. So it's a different world in terms of the style of service. So I don't think it would work at home because of the fact that you don't have to work as hard. You know, you're not trying to win someone over to basically make your pay for the week. You know, no matter what, even after a bad shift, you've made enough to live off. It didn't matter how bad you did at your job. You didn't have to earn tips or please people that much to make a livable wage. So you take that factor out, you just got people serving people food, which is like, it's not bad. And it's not saying that people are rude or disrespectful here, but you do feel the difference between, me as an American, the way that I work. Everyone says it immediately. They're like, yeah, you can tell you're from America. And I'm always like, what do you mean? And they're like, you're trying so hard. I'm like, I'm just doing my job. And they see it as me trying hard. I'm like, y'all just don't work like that? Oh, okay.
That is interesting. Like when you take out the working for tips, and just working on a livable wage, like it does make a difference. And you wonder, like the people that really extend themselves here to make money and are really successful off of tips are the ones that are the most like creative. So it's interesting, or would be interesting to see being there, how creative people get when they just know that they're going in and just making their livable wage.
Yep.
I mean, Natalia, do you feel like you get better service in America because people are working harder for it as opposed to being paid for it?
Not necessarily. I mean, you would think, like in theory, in terms of what I just said, yes, you should be getting better service. But you also have to remember, because of the way that America very much does not value the service worker, you're going to get a worker who's going to work their butt off and they're going to do their best to make sure that they can give you the best experience. But, you can only take so much from a customer who doesn't appreciate that before you start adjusting your work style, kind of holding back a bit, because it's exhausting to be your best of the best for every shift of every day of the week. So in theory, yeah, it should be better service. And if you're a good table with a good server, it's great service. Like that's why people become regulars, because they meet people, they meet staff, and everyone gets on really well. And you just keep going back there. Where in America, they don't really value the worker. It's seen as a lower level job, like, oh, okay, you couldn't make it through college, whatever people really think about it. And so you're not being respected off the jump. So, you're Miss Peppy, you're Miss into your job. You're like, yeah, damn, I care. I want to do all this. And then, 2 months in, it's the 8th person of the day that just yelled at you because, you did something slightly off. And you're like, well, damn, I'm trying. Like, if you understood every piece of this job, you wouldn't be yelling at me. So it's like, in theory, yeah, it should be better at home. But, people don't value the job as much. You're not paid as much. Whereas here, you're not seen as lesser than anyone else. If anything, they kind of put people who serve up on a pedestal because they're like, shoot, we're lazy. We don't even feel like eating. And here you are serving me, So it's one of those things where, it's kind of ends up being the opposite result. You assume better service, better environment because you're working harder, but you also have to remember the customer base matters as well. So it's a bigger factor than people realize.
I mean, we were saying that like in Philly, especially now with like a bunch of restaurants closing, that like the bartender and stuff is going to have to be a lot more skilled than before. Like just like common, like regular people can't be like, well, I didn't finish college, I'm going to go get a bartending job. It's going to be more of a level of respect than before.
100%. That's
more vocational, where it's just like, if you're a good fucking plumber, you can make $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? Same
Yep.
thing. It's just like, oh, we are recognizing your skill set and we appreciate it more now. As opposed to, I'm going to go work in like an Irish bar where I pour beer and shots and I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I think that's going to fade away. I'm curious how that. I'm not really sure about like what the Australian bar scene is like. Like I'm curious, like how is there like I mean I know that there are cocktail bars obviously in Australia, like but I'm curious, like is it a similar sort of scene where like people take it seriously like as a job or is it mostly just like nah fuck it?
It's very much a mix, and that's more of like the person's personality rather than like the job scene itself giving off that vibe, because I've met such a mixture of between the two. Like a lot of my close friends here work in the industry. Like I have a friend who's a promoter, and so she works in the clubs, in the bars, and she does festivals and stuff like that. So from her perspective of working in the clubs and the bars, that's her job. So she takes it seriously. She puts on her face. She has her uniform is always intact. You know, no matter the trashiest of the club that you go into, if she's working there, she's doing her job and she's doing it right. Well, then you also got the case of you only have to be 18 to drink here. So you've got 18, 19-year-olds who can work in bars. And so they're getting these jobs because they've got a friend who's on the list that can get them in. And then, you know, they meet the right person. Now they can bartend at the bar, you know? So it's very much because it is a tour space area as well, it's very much flashy. How can we get kids in? We want to sell tickets, money, you know, clubs, you know, what's the hippest thing, what's new. So for them, it's all about how many people can we get in here. They don't really care about, you know, all the time the value of what's coming out of it, because there's some clubs you walk in there and you're like, oh no, I feel like I'm back in college. They just put anybody behind that bar. They're only doing straight standard drinks. There's nothing fancy being made. You can't order a cocktail. The Long Island's the most, you know, exotic cocktail on there because, you know, it's just simple steps. So you've got those clubs, and then you've got clubs where, you know, it's dress code, and they've got, you know, people at every door, you know, girls are being watched out for. They've got dancers on stage, you know, it's very, you know, what you'd go to Philly and, you know, like Noto, something like that, where, you know, it's a venue that's being guarded, watched, bathrooms are being attended to, you know, so you've got, oh, there we go. You've got those cases where that club is serious. You got a dress code. You got people who pay attention. You can't just walk in there looking like you came from school. So it depends. Whereas the bar that I worked at was a dive bar. So I didn't even work in like a typical bar in terms anyway, and then went to a dive bar in Australia. And I ended up working with an older Australian gentleman who was a chef, South African guy, a Kiwi guy, another guy from out South Africa, and a Southern Australian girl, and put that in a dive bar in like what I would consider, you know, kind of like an area at home. Like if you go out in Southport here, it's kind of like Doylestown a little bit. So, okay, you know, you got that in a Doylestown, like a dive bar with mixed people from around the world. And just, you know, anyone who's anyone can walk in this bar. There's no like lawyers to homeless people. We served anyone. So you put that in the mix on top of it being an Australian type bar. And let me tell you, it was more of a party than a job, but in like the best way possible. Like everyone wanted to have a good time. It was enjoyable. And it didn't matter what job you had during the day. When you're at the bar, you're at the bar. So there's experiences like that where I learned so much. I've met amazing people from around the world. I've got such great friends from serving here. And, you know, it was a dive bar, super lax, no dress code. No one really gave a shit what you looked like, sound like, who you banged when you went home. It literally didn't matter. Everyone was there. We didn't tolerate bullshit. No one made fun of each other in, you know, a malicious way. We did trivia, everything you want from a bar. And then, like I said, then you got the other end of the spectrum where you got 18-year-olds serving you drinks, you know, sticky dance floor, and nothing's been cleaned in a month. So it's got a really weird range because of the age difference in drinking as well. So it's a plethora of different things you can get if you don't know what to look for when you're going out. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look for when you're going out? That's my question.
That's like if I go out. I was gonna say, Nat here compared to Nat at home in Philly with Shelby is a different Nat. Okay, so Nat here.
Now I'm more curious, so you must go on.
When I go out now, I go out. So I'm mainly me and my partner were mainly rave type people. So we go to festivals, we go to shows. So if we're going out, yeah, we're going to a club, but we're going for a show. So we're typically going to see a DJ perform or something like that. So we go out kind of different. We don't really go out to the club just, listen to any old person play, some playlist off their laptop. We go out for artists. Where that being said, after parties happen that are at clubs that are not there for someone. And once I'm already in that mode, Shelby knows I'm just a whole different person. So when I go out, I look for, the bartender doesn't have to know how to do fancy stuff. I really don't care if you don't know how to make my Negroni. Can you give me Jack and Coke? Jack on the rocks, I'm sweet. So for me, an 18-year-old working at a bar at an after party of a show that I just went to, I'm not really bothered as long as the drinks don't cost too much. Sweet. The cheaper the better. So for me, I'm not really bothered by it, but I know that people who do care about those standard things like that, they have them. Like there is a bar literally called Cocktails. So they have them. They do exist. It's just a matter of finding them and, being comfortable there. So.
Yeah, there is definitely more of like, there's a difference between like you're saying, like it's more club culture. Like that's like getting dressed and going out and going to like something, where I feel like American culture is more like the bar is just like the bar. Like you go all the time. Like Natalia's gone out with me in pajamas. Like
literally
in pajamas, putting on face masks and being like,
you have to call her out like that, Jesus.
We both did. We were like,
we did it. We were just like,
it's
just
fine.
what you get.
So, there is that difference of like, but I feel like that's a lot of like other countries. Like you go out, like going out for drinks is a bigger thing.
I mean, when Sean and I went to Canada, the nightlife in Canada there was so different. They basically had, like, if you looked on the maps, you could not look more than one street without a bar, without a club. So there was certain cities, if you go to another countries, where like it's strictly for people, our age to just have a good time after work. It was super clean city. Like there was like barely any trash around, easily accessible. Everyone was just trying to have a good time. And it was like purely a nightlife for like young adults who just want to have a good time, but not like we used to because we can't anymore. So like you've got cities like that where it's like perfectly tailored to what we would want now that we're mature, quote unquote, and we don't party the same. It's exactly what you would want. And then, compared to Philly, then compared to Gold Coast. So there are cities in other countries where they actually found a way to find the balance and make it work for responsible people who, want to get fucked up sometimes, but also we got jobs tomorrow. So it's funny when you go different parts of the world that how they express their nightlife differently.
So yeah, just like while you've been home and not working, what kind of what have you been doing? What are your habits?
I've been working out a lot. I do a lot of now soccer's actually back, so again, a whole different thing. Now sports are starting back up here. So we've started training, but no games yet. Still no contact, but we have like sanitation rules, hand sanitizer before you come in, before you leave. So things are trying to go back to normal. But when it all hit, we had training that Wednesday. So my birthday is the 17th. I was up in the mountains and we were driving back the next day because I had training that night. And we're on our way. It's like a 2-hour drive. And I get a message in our group chat from our coach. And he's like, training is canceled. COVID has hit. We will not be resuming training until further notice. And I was just like, yo, dude, this is real. Because like I said, it wasn't ever really huge in Queensland here. So it was happening, but not really enough for anyone to really fully panic and just shut down and drop everything and go home, hit the grocery store. I mean, people did the stupid grocery store panic, but that was just going to happen. But, in terms of soccer, it just stopped. Like literally my coach was like, yeah, that's it. We're not training. So see you when I see you. And we were like, okay, sweet. So we literally just stopped soccer on a dime the next day. And then after that, work followed about 3 days later. So I had no soccer, no work within like 4 days of a rotation. And I was like, sweet, everything that I do is now not happening. So at first I was like, sweet, I can take some time and relax for once. I can sleep in. I can, I'm not working 6 a.m. shifts. I'm not going to training at night after 8-hour shifts. So I was hella lazy the first week, like super, super sloppy, just didn't do anything. And then after the first week, I was like, I'm disgusting. I should do something with my life. And I started working out again so I could stay in shape because soccer was bound to start back up, and got into drawing again, baking and cooking. So I'm like trying to be some type of productive house person who also stays fit. I don't know who I am anymore.
Well, yeah, that is crazy because I mean, you've been playing soccer forever, like, you know, forever. So to just have something that, you know, is so embedded into your daily life and that training just like sees immediately, like that has a big toll on like, you know, your day to
It
day.
just stopped. Yeah, I was just like, what do I do now? And like, it wasn't like we just stopped training. We were on our 5th week of the season and second in the league by 1 point. Like we were on a roll and then it just stopped. So on top of it just stopping altogether, we were like top of the league doing really well and then just got slapped in the face.
So the other thing we really want to talk about is the Black Lives Matter movement, and like what that's like there for you, what it's like having your family still back here and your friends, and just your opinion on everything that's been happening.
Well, here it's definitely a different world because they have their own issues with their own indigenous culture. So there's been a lot of kind of a mix of the causes. So there's a Black Lives Matter cause here, and there's also the Aboriginal community protests here as well because they've had the same type of brutality just targeted at Aboriginals, not necessarily Black people. So people need to understand that they are different. So when people look at Australia and they say, "Oh, Australia's doing it too," you know, with the Black people there, it's like there are Black people here, but we are not Aboriginal. And that is a whole different group of people who are also having their own issues with police brutality. So over here, it's kind of a mix of two causes that kind of have the same base. And there was a lot of protests over this past weekend. The government tried to stop them in some cities, and the people were like, "Nah, we're not stopping." And they basically called and called and called until the morning of, got the approval, and everyone got to do their peaceful protests. Apparently, it went amazing. I personally didn't go. I instead wrote that story that I posted instead because I felt however I can, you know, reach the communities that I'm involved in without putting myself at risk for COVID with my asthma and soccer. However I can do it, I'll do something. So my family at home, we have so many family group chats. So we FaceTime a lot. We vent to each other a lot. A lot of it's just expressing how we're feeling that day, you know, what friends have we reached out to, who's reached out to us, you know, and a lot of it is mostly just dealing with the change of friendships that we're having, you know, people we never thought that we would, you know, think about losing. We're not even having a second thought and we're like, not, you know, that's a lot of what it is. It's not as much of the fighting and the hollering and the, you know, activism that people think it is coming from the personal side of the Black Lives Matter for us. A lot of it is decompressing and reevaluating our lives and looking at what's important, who's really behind you, you know, what is there that you need to be putting your energy into, because we're trying to put our energies into a lot of things. Our friends are putting energy and our family members are putting energy, and everyone is trying to learn and do something who is there for the cause. So when we, you know, turn our phones off, we lay down for the night, we decompress. That's the part that we're all trying to focus on, because it's so easy to get caught up in the social media side of it. Because I did for like the first few days. I was heated. I was on social media. I was in people's faces, but I was trying my hardest to use very civil tone and be very educational with the way I spoke and not attacking, because a lot of what it is people's fear that they're the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I want so many of my, especially my friends, to know you're not a bad guy for living into the privileges that you have. We were kids. We didn't know better. We're only 25. We're not that old ourselves to be holding ourselves to the same standard as our parents and our grandparents, you know, but we do have that responsibility to hold them accountable as well. So for here, it's happening. It's not as strong. It's not as, what do I say, heated, motivated. You know, they're angry as well, but we do have to remember that most of the Aboriginal communities in the Northern Territory, where not a lot of people live or go to in the first place, so a lot of the fight can't even really be brought to where it mostly is. So it's also a different thing where every city in America has their own version of it, so every city has something to go out there for, whereas if it's mainly in the Northern Territory and you're in Melbourne, Victoria, you may know people, you may have friends, but you're not going to drive up to the Northern Territory and march in the streets with them. It's just not realistic. So with it being a huge country and so separated and, you know, only being like 4 or 5 states, I could be completely wrong with that number, but, you know, it's completely different than 50 different states with hundreds of cities who have their own versions and stories of this, rather than, it is everywhere, but far distances between, if that makes sense. So it's happening, but nothing like at home. Definitely less intense, but it's kind of, for me personally, I enjoy it because I can be involved and it's not as taxing as it would be at home, because I know right now at home, y'all working every day. I'm seeing friends on social media, in the community, messaging me personally, asking questions. Like, my friends at home who are with it are freaking with it, and I appreciate it so much, and I love it so much that everyone from our small white town is stepping up, and they're like, this is not what this generation is about. I know that may have worked for you guys, but that's not how it's going to roll anymore. And here, with a lot of Maori people who come over here, Aboriginal people who come over here, a lot of marginalized communities do come to Australia. But again, like I said, because of the size of things, separation of communities, it's not as a tight-knit fight. It's kind of like everyone's taken their fight to where they have it, but we're broadcasting it to each other, tweeting about it to each other. So it's happening, but not as joined up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems to be more of like an educational issue where like white people are finally asking like, what do I need to do? Right? Like, what do I need to know that I don't know now? And I feel like for some reason, I don't know why it's so different. And we could probably dissect this for hours, why it's different than Ferguson from 4 years ago. Like, there's a movement now where white people are finally like, hey, like, I fucked up. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, please educate me. And like, people are more open to like being educated now.
That's the difference, I think, from what's happened in the past. Like, people are openly asking questions and asking how they can help. It's a very
100%. Yeah, like I go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask you like, what, when you look out over like the broader populace, like, and you think like, what is it you think you need other than obviously white people being like, we need to restructure some things within the police departments, and there's some obvious policy issues that we can go through that are being gone through. But like on a personal level for you, I'm just curious, like, what is it that you would like to see out of like white people, like what do you want to see?
For me, because I mostly know white people just because of where I grew up and everything, I mainly just want people to just really take the time to take themselves out of this right now. Not in terms of responsibility, because that's where you're most important, but in terms of what the focus is, take yourself out of it, and not in a disrespectful way, not to say you don't have your own personal experiences with friends, this, that, and the third. You can be empathetic, you can feel for us, you can have your own feelings as well. No one's saying you can't feel overwhelmed right now. Everyone's overwhelmed in their own way, but it's not about you in the nicest way possible. Ask a question. And if you do have a friend that is Black, and you're that close, or you claim to be that close, then act like it. Ask us questions. Seriously, I'm not one to sit here and throw you off because the way you asked your question was not exactly how you should have. That's also like language. We also need to learn how to speak to each other better. We need to learn how to talk to each other about problems without being so triggered so easily, because it is a two-way street. There is a lot that people aren't giving a little bit of leeway towards, and that's the one thing that I'm trying to get through to my friends, especially the ones that I know that are very logical, trying to find the facts in this, trying to find the book work behind it, because the emotional side is too much to deal with, because it's so much emotion behind it. If they can just find some facts that are making sense of it, then then it's not as hard. So I have to finish that. So it's, for me, I've been doing a lot of, don't be afraid to ask what you want to ask. Don't be afraid to say what you want to say. And if it comes off the wrong way, I'll let you know. Like, that's the one thing. And that's what my story really basically was trying to say. Like, I've always let things slide. That was me. I don't like confrontation. I have an attitude. I'm a very attitude person, but I don't like confrontation. I don't like people being upset. I don't like any of that. But it's not time to be nice anymore. and I'm learning that. And so when I wrote my story about growing up at home and, you know, my community and my friends and what I wanted them to know, it was basically like, look, you're going to give me the respect that I deserve, and we're all in this together. And if you truly want to be there for me, you're going to have to listen to what I'm saying, because you're trying to fight for a cause that you really know nothing about. So if you really want to help, the best way to help is to close your mouth and open your ears. And if you're going to open your mouth, you better use it in the way that is the most effective from your angle. Like if you're someone who is a white business owner and you're in a town that has, you know, minority groups that aren't necessarily looked after, or they, you know, they don't have the same resources, reach out to them, like bring them into your restaurants, bring them into your bars, make them feel like they're a part of your community too. If they know that that's a bar or that's a restaurant or that's a whatever that not a lot of people of color can go into if they don't feel comfortable, put out an ad. Say, I don't have time for that. My customer base will be diverse and mixed. Everyone is welcome here. If you have a problem with it, we no longer need your service. It's stuff like that where you don't think you can make a difference, but people have so much voice in different ways. Like even just this with you guys, you have a podcast that reaches people, and it may not be many people of color, but that's good. That means that, you know, your mainly white base is going to be reached, and it's going to be listening to someone who is trying to just educate and integrate and have peace about it. I can't yell at people. I can't force you to change your mind. Me being angry and yelling at you and calling you names is never going to make you understand that, for starters, you got to admit you're wrong. And for a lot of people, that's the hard part, admitting that they've done something wrong. And it's not always bad. It just means that you did it. Just like I let people say the N-word around me that had no business saying it. That is wrong. I had no business doing that. But that is something that is a result of how we were raised in our communities. And so it's a two-way street. We got to hold ourselves accountable as well. I can't keep letting people walk all over me in those terms because of friendship, because of not wanting to stir the pot, because of not wanting to make people uncomfortable. That's also a part of the problem. Mm-hmm. So I want a lot of, you know, my white friends to come to me. Seriously, this is the time to be vulnerable. Call me and we can cry. You can say, I don't know how to talk to my parents, or I don't know how to deal with this myself, or am I wrong for not feeling guilty? Whatever it is, if you feel like it's a deep thing that you're embarrassed to say out in public, or it's going to be the wrong person, say it to me. I don't care. I can take it. If you want to say something, you want to come at me, you want to tell me that I've been addressing you the wrong way, go for it. And I will calmly tell you why you're wrong. But you know, I'm not here for, you know, trying to divide people, telling you, oh, see, I've been telling you white people from home this and that since high school. That's not what this is about. It doesn't matter what happened in high school. We were all dumb. We were in high school, whether it was racially charged or not. You did some stupid stuff. So I don't want anyone to feel like they can't come to me and ask questions, or, you know, tell me things that they've always wanted to tell me, or whatever it is. This is not the time to be shy. This is not the time to be embarrassed or whatever. This is time to be vulnerable and real with each other, because real life is happening whether people want to accept it or not. So if we're going to be real, then let's be real. That's what we're here for. That's what this is supposed to be, you know, realness. This is life. You can't stop it from happening. You might as well accept it and do your best to deal with it. So I'm here. Anybody want to talk about it? You got questions you want to know. If you have things that I don't know that you want to teach me, I'm here to learn too. I don't know everything. I'm also a kid. I'm 25, you know, but I want it to be a two-way street. That's the biggest thing I want to get out of this. It's a two-way street, and it can't be people coming in with mouths open, ears shut. It's never going to work.
Yeah.
No, I was just sort of like basking in like the glory of everything you just said. I don't know. It's just felt like I was taking a of education. I was very happy about it. Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to say that this moment, I mean, I hope obviously this moment is going to be bigger than the others, but when I look around the environment and I see crazy places like fucking NASCAR, it's just like, yeah, we're banning Confederate flags now. And we're seeing that NFL players are demanding that, like, no, you can't prevent us from kneeling anymore. And there's a lot of stuff going on now where it seems like in the culture, there's going to be a significant change and a significant movement. In Philly, we've had just over the past 3 or 4 days, a couple restaurateurs who started their own restaurants who have been forced out by their own boards because they made ridiculous racist or semi-racist Instagram posts. I just feel like this is a moment, and I'm hoping that it is the moment. It might not be, because I'm sure during Ferguson, people thought that maybe that was the moment and they got too excited. It didn't happen, right? So that's a concern. But right now, it feels like it might be the moment because of all these different things I'm piecing together. I'm like, oh, like maybe it's the time, like Seattle, Minneapolis, New York, defunding a lot of the police, NASCAR, no more Confederate flag. Throughout the sports world, I just like this. It just seems like maybe it's a thing, and I hope it is, but I don't want to overstate it, because if it's not, I'm gonna be really sad about it later if it doesn't happen, and I don't want to get too excited. But I feel like this might be a turning point, and I hope it is. I don't know. That's sort of what I got. I just hope it is.
It's different this time. I mean, I think it's different even in like. I've seen so many companies come out with things that aren't correct, and they were corrected. I mean, people are being called out. People are being like, no, that's not correct. Correct yourselves. Like, learn, read up, and get back to us. And a lot of people are. I mean, a lot of people are, making big changes, even small and large companies. And, hopefully,
right?
Like
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, but the fact that this is how we're feeling, right? This is how we feel. This is why it's different. Because every other time we were pissed off, and the people who have known from the jump what was real have always been tired and like, damn, we're trying to tell y'all. But now we're like, damn. Like, how much more can y'all see before it's not a fight anymore? How much more can we show you before it's a total agreement? Like, yeah, this sucks, and this affects everyone. So it is different. It's 100% different. And I'm so glad that you want it to be different, because it's not going to be if people don't believe it's not going to be. So as scary it is as hope is, because hope is some bullshit sometimes. But we have to have it right now. That's what's going to fuel people. That's what's making people tell their stories, coming out of the woodwork with stuff, getting cases reopened, putting families' hearts at ease that their loved ones are finally getting their voices heard. People are like, oh, case is 30 years old. What's the point now? Those families have been hurting for 30 years and they're getting their cases opened. That means something. That's change right there. You know what I mean? Things that they probably gave up on, that the public is like, nah, we got you. You fought as long as you have. We got you. We in the masses. We coming out every day doing shifts. We're not stopping. We don't get tired. Movements don't get tired. That's what people need to remember. Movements don't get tired. You can't stop a movement. People may get tired, but the movement won't. So if we keep it positive, keep the notes right, keep just wanting to help each other, it's not going to stop anytime soon. This is not going to be something that's going to end in the next week. It's not.
Especially with the social media momentum. I mean, I think that that's the big change. Just, it's so easy to keep it going, to get the word out, to give people resources to read and post and write to states. I don't know. I just think that's what's keeping it going, even after the protests stop.
Yep.
All right, Nat, do you have any last words for us? Last call.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to, first of all, see your face and hear your voice again. But
Can I come visit
Sean
you
says
on the
he loves
Gold
you.
Coast? That's what I want to know.
We can go visit Nat on the Gold Coast.
Can we take a trip?
We could take a trip.
Fine.
Flights to Australia are probably like $50 right now.
She said nothing. I'm concerned she does not want us.
Oh no, you can come. I'm fine with that. You just have to deal with me.
I love dealing
That's
with
on you.
I've chosen to deal with you for a long time.
We've been choosing to deal with each other for a long time, and I'm sorry for the public.
And so is Natalia's boyfriend, Sean. He has also dealt with the two of us for a very long time.
Okay, we're going to do an 86 pod field trip to the Gold Coast. It's going to be great. It's gonna happen.
That's the best field trip ever.
Yeah.
86
No
abroad.
shit.
Euro trip. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I like that also, Nat, I have to tell you that Steve's sister lives in Australia and he is choosing to come and see you.
You can't say this on the pod.
Now it's engraved in the podcast, Shelby. Now you've blown up the spot.
You've blown it up. No, I invited her on the pod, but she's very shy, so she didn't want to do it. But I said, you should come on. She said no. But she lives in Melbourne, and I thought that maybe you guys could do like an American abroad thing and hook up and do like a, be friends. But
Look,
maybe
if she's
for-
comfortable, I'll be your friend. I'm down for friends.
Okay. I'll let her know. I said, you got a friend in Brisbane. She's American.
Mm-hmm.
No, that would be great. Small little
You
world.
guys are awesome. This podcast is awesome. Please keep giving it to the world. The world needs it.
I'm glad you like it. Me and Shelby worked on this for so long. We talked about it for a million years.
Many
And now we're finally doing it.
conversations saying that we needed a podcast, and finally got our asses going.
It's about damn time. When I tell you, this girl is one of the most motivated human beings I've ever met. Like, she was gonna do something. It was just a matter of when. So when she finally told me, like, she was doing real and like doing the podcast and doing everything, I was like, yes, there it is. Like, everything you do, you put your heart into, and you guys care about this stuff. I can tell talking to you guys, you're not just here for clout to make a podcast because you're bored in a pandemic. Y'all really actually want to talk about stuff that's important. And we need more podcasts like yours to drown out the other stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're gonna do our best. Shelby's definitely the backbone of this whole operation. I'm like the guy that's like, I got an idea, and Shelby's like, I got details, and I'm like, cool, that'll work. Like, that's how it happens. Shelby is the brains of the operation, and that's all you need to know.
Keeps the beauty of the operation.
Look at that face.
So Nat, no words of wisdom or anything for our last call?
I guess my biggest thing that I really want people to hear and really listen, just all emotions down. We need everyone, and everyone needs to listen. Foremost, listen, learn, educate, take something away, and don't have a conversation to look for a response. Have a conversation to listen and learn, because if you're just looking for something to respond to, you'll always find something to respond to and you'll miss the point. So please, please, please listen to each other. Listen to what everyone's got to say, because everyone has something to say, and it may not always be right, but it needs to be said sometimes. So say what you have to say. You'll be corrected if you need to be corrected, but say it. Don't keep anything in.
Steve,
I love it.
Paul, what do you have to say? You always have something to say.
No, I'm passing my last call off to Miss Natalia. She's got my last call.
All right. Well, Nat, thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to meet with us.
Hopefully we see you in Australia sometime soon.
Yes.
Fine with me. Fine with me.
Soon I'll be Googling flights when I. All right. Well, thanks, Nat. Enjoy your day. It's like what, 1:00 in the afternoon for you?
Yep.
Damn. Well, enjoy your day.
Have a good sleep.
Yeah.
Go to sleep.
Yeah.
Don't
Bye.
call me at 7 a.m.
You wish.
Shelby.
I do wish.
You wish. All right. Bye, Nat.
Bye, guys.